I'm in.
Shaily, you're in a place to be. What's up? How you doing?
Woohoo! I'm excited to be here. I love the energy. Let's party it up today.
I love it too, man. So, yeah. So you're what? So you're a big social media person? Is that what's going on? I know you're like you kind of geek out on TEDx stuff, and
I do. I got my ex right here from TEDx. Yes, I do love social media. I love it. Now, some people might be like, "Oh, like, are you an influencer? Do you have bajillions of followers?" And I'm like, and maybe you'll agree with me. You tell me. It's not about the number of bajillions of followers. If you have a handful of amazing, epic people, that could be worth so much more than a bajillion people who barely care about you. So I'm always about how to help people capture that, or capture if they already have that in the real world, capture it and redirect it towards whatever purposes they've got in a way that's authentic and real. That's my spiel. There you go. Agree? Disagree?
No, I agree because, speaking of a bajillion followers, sometimes I go to accounts and I see that they have 100,000 followers or 10,000 followers, but then you go down and you look at their pages or their feed or content, whatever you want to say, and they have 7 likes. I was like,
yeah,
did you buy these? Yeah. Did you buy these people?
Means nothing.
Yeah. And it's just, I don't really get the justification behind doing that. Does that make sense?
No, it does. I think, look, I learned this from a comedian. They're like, oh, well, sometimes the comedy clubs like to book us when they see the numbers. But now, like, this is like 5-10 years ago, they mentioned this to me. It's like, now they know that the numbers aren't actually engaged. It's not going to fill the seats. So if those people don't really care about you, it doesn't really matter. But if you made best friends with them when you used to be a part of a club together in college and you're still friends on LinkedIn, and now they work in a position to hire you at their company, there's an opportunity there to stay in touch and remind them that you're amazing, based on a foundation of trust that you already have, which that's where the easiest advantages are in social media that people often don't take advantage of.
Yeah, just kind of retouching on that there's just a little bit. I've had people just come up to me and just say, hey, man, you need to buy followers so you look legit. And I was like, I don't think that's right. I don't think that's the way you're supposed to do it. And just that I think most people can now tell that it's extremely fake. And it means more that if somebody liked it because they genuinely liked it, or hit subscribe or send me a message or whatever. I don't want, some weird bot saying promote on, and which it still happens with a little hashtag. I don't even know why that happens, but yeah, I haven't figured it out completely yet. So that's kind of why you're here to maybe.
I'm here.
You are here.
I'm here to be your Sherpa. If I can be helpful on that in life and anything, like, we're going to have a blast today.
For sure.
You get the thing that's the hardest thing sometimes people to realize is that what you know from the real world social skills and kindness and all that kind of stuff applies to the internet. And if you have the power to say, hey, here's some information I want you to have, and it's what people want, they're going to be like, yes, I like it. Yeah. But if you give them garbage and you don't care about them, like, what's going to happen, right? It's like human skills.
So let's take it back. So just for the viewers and the audience. So you weren't always all about social media and stuff at one point, correct?
Yeah, I was a unsocial kid where I didn't always have friends. I didn't know how to make connections with people, and accidentally on MySpace things happened. But
I was just saying that. Because I never really saw myself as a social person either, and I always felt like I had a little social anxiety built up in. Yeah, and even like I always seem like still. I was talking with my friends this past weekend. We went to a cookout, then we went out and got some drinks afterwards. And I was saying, like, I do pretty well in like a small group, as far as like 4 people. But when it gets to maybe like 6 or more, and I'm like, I don't feel like I'm doing well,
I'm with you. I'm a one-on-one person. I learned that the hard way. And then I realized I don't have groups of friends because I'm like, that's too awkward. But I accidentally got into a group of friends recently that I like. So that's been good. But one-on-one is where I thrive. Maybe it's where you thrive. You said small groups, but that same skill can be applied on the internet, right? You can build relationships with people one-on-one, and it could outlive the moments you spent with them once years ago to them becoming a raging fan of Chris over the years. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I say one-on-one, but yeah, I guess I do pretty well one-on-one. But when I'm actually with my close niche group, just what we were talking about when we started here, I do well there. But if it's like 3 random people, I don't think I would do well. But what blows my mind, though, and I hope like when I started this podcast, like before this, I had no idea what I was going to get into when I started talking to you. We've exchanged emails or whatever, and I was like, I don't know what her energy's like. I don't know how she's going to be, but still, me talking to a random stranger, I have gotten more comfortable. Yeah, just doing it, just like, all right, let's go see what happens, and you feed off each other, and I don't know what I'm going to say next. I have no idea what I'm going to say next, and that's why I love it. Thing. Yeah, and it's just this is what real people do, and like I don't plan out my conversations throughout my day. You never know who's going to come up to me and just start yapping away or whatever. Yeah,
I love that. And also, I don't know if this was an accident accidental benefit of you having a podcast that probably made you so much better talking to people when you know how to do shows.
I feel more comfortable.
You feel more comfortable, and that can only translate in so many other ways in your real life too. Sometimes you got to scare yourself a little bit.
Exactly. That's what I say all the time, that you got to do things that are hard and challenging yourself in order to grow.
Yes.
Yeah. And just that I was always going back on the kid thing or being and not doing well socially. These topics, tough topics, and I don't know if we're going to dive down any today, but
I'm flexible.
Okay, cool. But tough topics, whenever they would come about, I always felt like my way of, shying back a little bit and try to, what is the shady dip on people? Like, I ain't gonna talk about that, just because I was so self-conscious of what people would think, or I would feel like an idiot if I said something stupid.
So you know what I'm going to say on this is like, that same fear, I don't know if it stayed with you in adulthood, but a lot of my clients are like, oh my gosh, what do I say? Am I going to bother someone? Am I going to be annoying when I put something out into the world? Probably for very similar reasons that you had as a kid. Maybe. I don't want to project here. That's something that happens all the time. And I'm like, well, what's the easiest way to start? What if you, and maybe this is a you situation. You said you like groups of 4. What if you shared something that you thought about sharing online with those 4 people and just did that and not anything else? And probably take down, that's like one of the ways I tell my clients to take the edge off, is share it with a couple people, see how it feels. Because if you can share it with 2 or 3 people that you trust, that'll make you feel more confident to maybe share it with a little bit more people and a little bit more. Because even me, I had that fear, and I sometimes still have that fear today. I don't share too many personal secrets online, but I'm like, one day I'll have the balls, the chutzpah, the energy to do it. And maybe it'll happen. So we'll see.
Sometimes I do think I do kind of overshare on here, but not too. I think I got a good filter that I don't overshare too. But I say that, but when I've done my solo podcast, I feel like I've let out a little bit. But but that's kind of how I started out. That me and my friends were just sitting around bullshitting during the pandemic, and so like, hey, why don't we just start putting this on tape or whatever, digital stream? I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's the reason. But you're right that I was like, I want this to be how I would interact with my friends outside of with nobody listening. Because I want that's the real me, and that would make me more comfortable in me not trying to be somebody who I'm not.
Oh, yes to that. And the other thing I want to highlight, it's something really good that what you're doing for you and all of this stuff, and maybe for your listeners who have businesses or whatever, is that if somebody wanted to get that sense of what it's like to just shoot the shit with you, like you did with your friends, how would they know that if you didn't have somewhere to see it, right? Unless they talk to you on the phone, maybe they've done your podcast, but most people are never going to talk to you on the phone like that. But now you've given them a glimpse into your world and you let them see the full picture, which I think is really what the value is of this stuff, is that it lets you exist digitally without you having to be there for every minute of it. This used to be getting on the phone with people to get to know them, seeing them at an event, all of this stuff. And now you don't have to do that because they want to hear you shoot the shit with your friends. It's on record and they can do that. Now, granted, you have to drive traffic to it, but they can now get a better picture of who you are. And that's what content's all about. That's
a good point that, let's say, we were talking I do an hour roughly on these episodes. And so when people start listening, countless amount of times, these episodes that I have, they're going to kind of get a glimpse of the type of person I am. So and they see me on the outside, it's not what you said on your podcast. You're a completely different person, It's just that's why I was like, I gotta be myself if I'm going to do this, and my thoughts. And if I fuck up, I'm going to say hey, yeah, I said that wrong, or maybe I should have did a little bit more research. that, so yeah. Yeah,
you're real.
Yeah. And that's also, and just touching on that too, is that I feel, and you might have thoughts on this, that it's so hard that people are afraid to say that they're wrong or that they messed up on something. They don't want to own it and take responsibility. But that's also how I learned too. Yeah.
Yes, you should. It's how you learn. But also just acknowledging whatever situation you're in, if you're able to. Granted, I don't want to cause anybody trauma, but if you're too open to say stuff, and you maybe need a therapist and not social media, but to be open about, oh, I don't really know all the things about XYZ, or oh, maybe I'm ignorant. I had one podcast that I did, I don't know, a year or two ago, and the guy was kind of offensive towards women, but I had hope for him. And I'm if you could acknowledge yourself, people would at least be okay, he's not perfect. Because he's always I want to be myself all the time. I want to be me. But I'm if you can acknowledge that you're not perfect and that, maybe something will come out of your mouth. I think people would be a lot less likely to rage quit from your show.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because you don't have to be perfect. It's how you deal with the imperfect. That's in community building too. When you make a mistake, it's how you handle the mistake. Or even in PR, when you look at somebody who does a scandal on the news, it's how they handle it. That keeps them in good light or bad light, right? And same with social media, right? If I say mistakes, I can try to delete it and just pretend it never happened, but then somebody's going to remember and be like, Shaily's shady. And I'm like, you know what? It's hard, but we'll figure out the balance, because I'm not perfect either. So someone calls me out on this after the episode, I don't know.
Well, even
but we're not perfect.
You could probably still pick it up from somebody, right? You could probably find it out there, right? Isn't there so many with like cancel culture now and everything that they can dig up tweets and
you could,
or is that just constantly going way back where nobody ever really deleted it? Something that he said a long time ago when it came out.
If you're a politician, then like I would be careful. Look, most everyday people that maybe all your people are celebrities who are listening to this, but most everyday people, hopefully no one hates you enough to like dig that deep. But if you're a public figure, it matters more, which is why I love this like middle space of like, you don't have to be a mega influencer who like different people are watching or TMC's watching. Like you have your people to stand up to, but like word travels fast. Even in like, I'm in Chicago, like, so I do something sketchy, like people hear about it. There's somebody in my network who did some really selfish behaviors with somebody that I know from a completely different network. And she relayed this back to me. And then I realized how much this person was causing damage in my local network. And now I haven't told anybody who this is or what they did, but like, I managed to triangulate this story between like 4 different people who are from completely different universes who I never thought would intersect. Yeah. And I'm like, if that story ever got out, like her reputation is down the toilet. So, and maybe, I don't know, she might have more clout than I realize, but like, I don't know, like trust is huge, right? And it's like these same real world relationships. It happens online too. You hear stories of like influencers taking advantage of other influencers, like audiences or whatever. Like, not that really matters for people here, but like, you know, that could take like somebody trying to take over someone else's real estate business by trying to steal their clients or whatever. Like, if you're a shady person, like it comes back to you, right? Like these things apply on the internet too. This is my little tangent on this, but
I'm loving it. It's making sense.
Yeah. Okay, great. I'm like, but yeah, thoughts, reactions. I don't know. Juicy stuff.
We kind of got off on our side topic or my first initial question though. So you were,
please.
Yeah. No, let's go back to the MySpace and you were like nervous. You weren't really. So how did you grow out of it? I mean, what made you turn and like, you're just going on that rant right there. It's like, you're not afraid to be talkative right there, especially in front of me. So
what
happened?
So I didn't have friends in middle school. Got to a new high school. I went to public school for the first time, and I met some people. What?
You homeschooled?
No, I went to private Jewish school, which was actually not bad. It's not whatever religious imagination of religious school looks like. This is way cooler, and I'm grateful for it. So
I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to make sure.
No, it's fun. Okay, I give you all the details. I'll tell all the tea if I can. So, and if not, I'll let you know, but so far so good. I think podcasts push me to be more vulnerable at times when I am nervous too, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing. But I'll tell you, so I didn't have friends. So I went to this new high school, made all new friends, and it was cool. But where I really thrived was on the internet, where like I could shape how I appeared online. I could find people who also connected to things that I liked, who didn't readily exist in my suburban town. If anyone went to Stevenson High School, suburbs of Chicago, hey yo,
oh, baby,
woohoo! Maybe somebody will pop up. But there was, so I like, I couldn't find the people that I connected with, but on MySpace was huge at that time. I found people that loved the same things that I did, reality competition shows like Big Brother and Survivor. I don't know if you're a fan by chance.
I used to watch Big Brother and Survivor when they first come out. When they first
Heartbreaker. It's still good. It's still good. See, I could geek out over that all day. Gotcha. So I found people who loved my hobbies and I made friends with them. And at some point, like we found a sub community within our community and I ended up like leading it. Like I ended up being the community builder. Okay. So that was, and then I made friends with people. People knew me as like the connector, the person who brought people together. And like my status went up and that kind of made a huge difference for me. So all of my closest friends ended up being people I met on the internet. And we would fly out to see each other and everything. So like, that's how I kind of like learned to make friends was online. And it was like that relationship knowledge really came from how I did stuff on the internet. And honestly, playing online versions of Big Brother and Survivor, it's a lot of social skills and like manipulation and voting people out and scheming, which I don't do in my regular life. So like I learned a lot of like extreme social behaviors from this community. Whole other can of worms. But it opened up the doors for me because I never knew that what I did on MySpace as a teenager was really what I loved, which is what I do now, which is like helping people engage their communities online, knowing how well they're engaging with their networks online. And that's what I did on MySpace. So one thing led to another. And now I'm very social on the internet, but it also applies to real life because I went to an event the other night and someone's like, hey, it's the Sherpa. And I was like in person and they're like, oh, hey, I bumped into like a neighbor who was like, hey, Sherpa. And I was like, oh my gosh. Because people are getting to know me on the internet before they get to know me, like, in ways they don't get to know me like one-on-one. So it's very cool. So life has changed.
It was weird. meeting people on the internet. Did you say you would fly out to meet up with them?
Yeah. Yes.
Hard? Was that kind of nerve wracking?
I mean, I told my mom. So if any kids are listening, like tell your parents or tell your loved ones or tell your caretakers, because that's smart. I conveniently knew a few things about being safe on the internet, so that was good.
Sure.
But I was so scared because like I would always record, like if I like my dinky camera that we had back then, like I would always record it. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm meeting someone for the first time. There was a tornado warning in my neighborhood, so I don't know if it's actually going to happen, but just warning you, I'm hearing the thunder.
Oh gosh.
But I don't know. It doesn't really happen in the city of Chicago. So I'm like, is this real? Are they joking?
I know they got tornadoes in Chicago.
I don't think they either. They always like to go to the suburbs. But that's my reality, right? Like I took what I knew and I made something more out of it. And it was beautiful. So hopefully neither of us will die tonight from a tornado. So yeah.
All right. So what years was this? So you said MySpace. Was that like 2000s?
Mid 2000s?
Mid?
Well, for me, it was mid 2000s where I started doing all this stuff. It's like 2005, 6, 7, 8 ish.
So the internet was probably pretty safe ish back then. I mean, people still trying to probably figure it out, right?
Here's what I'll tell you is that, and I still think this is true. Parents are still like older parents are still super ignorant of how the internet works. Like they think they need the classes, right? Because like I don't want to get hurt, but like the child predator movies and TV shows were out in full swing. And if you were somebody who was like easy to prey on, who didn't get the love they needed, like you could have been exploited on the internet. I had a good head on my shoulders, and thank goodness I had trust with my parents because I made it safe. Yeah. So.
I'm just trying to think because, I remember so as far as I guess you want to say social media, I remember doing Facebook in 2006 when it was just still for college students.
Yes.
And I remember just first hearing about it. And it was like, oh, you got to get this. And I was like,
you have to get an invite.
Yeah, you had to get an invite and all this shit. And finally I got on, and then all of a sudden you were getting friend requests. And it was just like, what's going on? I don't remember when I got my first iPhone. I guess I still had the Razor back then in 2006.
Oh, remember the Razors? Those were all the rage. It was like, it's so dumb. I feel like so dumb now. I was like, we like these phones because they were thin. It's like now we carry these freaking bricks, but they do more things and we're okay with it.
I'd run home and be like, oh, who's my friend? Your friend request today? And just saying, I hope it's some sweet girl, man.
So addicting.
Yeah. And just, I guess that's where it took off. So. And then you can only put a status up of like, oh, Chris is going to the store or Chris is going out tonight, and like that was it. You couldn't put a rant of your political beliefs or whatever. So it actually made it somewhat better. I think you could just say like, oh, can't wait, you can hit the club or whatever.
It was so sweet and innocent. Old Facebook looked so different than it does now. I don't even know if I would recognize it because it was so like I remember you said the college thing, right? So I was in the second wave where they were allowing high schoolers with their high school email to get on, and like you could actually find all of your classes on there and find your classmates. So a few of my classmates had registered all their classes, and I was like, oh, these are 2 people that are gonna be in my class in a few weeks or whatever, and it was like really cool. There was all the Farmville. There was a lot of weird stuff on Facebook. But it changed, and then eventually killed MySpace. Rest in peace, MySpace. But I really love MySpace.
Speaking of that, and being in your field, do you think? Yeah. I've heard people tell me that Facebook is the next one to go out. That it's only for old people, and some people are getting out. What's
happening?
And that's kind of. And I was talking with one of my buddies, and that's why they are trying to. What's the word am I looking for? Trying to gain the metaverse or bring it about, and like this is going to be the new thing and be more popular than actual Facebook. And
I mean, look, TikTok is already like taking so much attention from Facebook companies or meta companies, but it is going down. I'll tell you this, like a lot of my friends were in like I have a lot of like liberal friends who are really questioning like how ethical is Facebook. I even have a friend who gets paid to like monitor Facebook posts for like offense and stuff like in California, which is wild. And a lot of people, and there's also like people who like believe that MySpace allows for certain kinds of hatred and not others, and it specifically exploits the Jewish community. And like I've heard that, and so that there's a lot of stuff like that. So one of my clients was so over Facebook because it's so addicting and all this stuff. So she have a teacher. She has a client community of people. She teaches how to do sales to get higher paying consulting clients. It teaches LinkedIn, and I teach her people how to do LinkedIn because LinkedIn is amazingly wild if you leverage it. So we used to have a Facebook group for our community. And so she was like, I'm so sick of Facebook. I want to go somewhere else. Let's get off of here. So I was doing a lot of research on other platforms that we could go on. And we eventually, I'm like terrified. I'm like,
I saw you like pause for a minute. Go, yeah.
I'm like, it's it's weird. I don't know. Maybe they weren't kidding. I don't know. So she eventually moved the community to Slack. And so now we've been on the Slack thing for like, well, I've used Slack for other things, but like now we've moved the community to Slack. So she wanted to get away from Facebook, and it's better for her mental health. And a lot of her people are also tired of having to make Facebook accounts to like go into like client coaching communities or whatever. So there's drawbacks because Facebook does have an algorithm that's really wonderful and like wonderful in terms of getting you to see stuff. Slack doesn't really have that. Circle doesn't have that. Discord doesn't really have that. So you have to like get your people to actually show up to participate. And if they don't totally love what you're doing, to show up there, or the email automations don't get you to look back at the group, it's a little bit tricky. But now we're off Facebook, and it's better for everyone's mental health. And that was a thing. But Facebook is losing some attention, but it all depends, I think, on where your people are and where you have relationships with your people. So if you have people on your Facebook who are really into what you do and really care about you in particular, maybe it's worth it. But that's usually my go-to, is that like, when I say I teach social media, I don't teach, let me teach you the Facebook hacks. Like if you asked me like 7 years ago, I could probably tell you what's going on with the algorithm immediately, but that was when I was a social media freelancer managing Facebook accounts. But what I tell my people now is like, it's like not about the platform. It's everything we talked about earlier. It's relationships, it's trust. It's, where do you care about your people and where do people care about you? Because you might have a huge audience somewhere else. You can move them to a platform that you enjoy more. That takes a lot of effort. Yeah. But if you have an engaged list on your LinkedIn of people that you've worked with over the years, that could be your next client, your next listener, your next book buyer, whatever, like, you feed them where they are if you can, and the way that they want to be fed is what I say, like feed them like food. Now I'm like, oh shoot, do I need to eat? But that's how I think about it. So meet your people where they are. So for every person that's different. And so I have a client that's on a platform I never heard of before, like a year ago, or even 6 months ago. Like it was a brand new platform, but everything I teach is applicable, right? Is that it still matters who you're talking to, the relationships you have with them, the trust that you build with them, and the insights that you share with them about how they can get to know who you are and what you hope to do in the world. If you can do that, you've got a great base to build from.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been, the more I think about it, speaking of that, I've probably had more success with LinkedIn and Instagram as far as, prmoting these podcasts, which I really don't do a lot of promotion anyway. I just kind of just throw it up there. And if you want to listen to it, there it is. If you want to share it, cool, that's great. But it was not my intention to become a huge influencer or a huge podcaster when I started this. I just kind of more did it for me. But I was like, well, yeah. And I wanted, if those happen, that's going to be a great bonus if that ever happens. And that's fine with me. But I've noticed that it seems like Facebook is just kind of just, it just seems to be pushed aside. I don't get a lot of traffic there. So speaking of what you're saying, Instagram and LinkedIn seems to be best for me. But
there you go.
I'm also wondering if I should, speaking about like the way I hashtag it or the way I promote it on there, start doing more. I guess is what I was getting ready to ask you.
Yes. So I see you have an influencer account, which is cool, on LinkedIn. Creator account. Oh, every platform has its own name for its own thing. You have a creator account, which is cool. So you have those like hashtags, okay, fitness, podcast, CrossFit, technology, higher education. Oh, that's a really interesting mix.
Yeah, well, that's my full-time gig.
You work at the university. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, see, I really don't know what I'm doing when I'm hashtagging and stuff. So I just usually somebody says, 5 hashtags seems pretty good, because I feel like, again, what is it, the max on Instagram, 30?
It was 30, and then something happened, I think 6 months ago, and I feel like they said that 15 was the limit or the suggested limit. So that's what I heard. I was telling people 30. I'm like, if you got 30, use them. But like, there's all these different schools of thought, and like an Instagram like super expert will be like, do this and that and this. But like the basic understanding that I use for hashtags, especially if you're not like a full company that can hire a full-time employee just to do hashtags, which somebody probably does, is find the hashtags that are popular but not too popular. This is for Instagram. And then that way you can get ranked higher in your content to get seen by more. So what I've done with clients is I go through a tool that I have a video training on this for sale on my website somewhere, but like, it's basically, I go to this website, I put in a bunch of hashtag ideas that I have, I even copy and paste them from other creators that I like, put them in this thing, and I'll tell you like, okay, this one's just popular enough that you might have a shot. And then it gets you organic eyeballs to your content. Now, if your content gets more eyeballs, if it's not hooking them to stay, it doesn't really matter. So like, it's like, I say, be careful with how much you weigh your efforts on algorithms versus like what you're trying to say is like, I'm doing it because I enjoy this and I love it and I'm having fun. Like that's the ROI for you, and everything else is a bonus. So I wouldn't dive too deep into it, but there are nuggets. So that's Instagram. Do you want to know LinkedIn?
Yeah. So Instagram, LinkedIn.
Different.
I don't do the TikTok stuff.
It's okay. I actually stopped using hashtags on TikTok because it saved me time. And if somebody told me, I don't know, these hacks, again, they change all the time. So this is why I don't want my people to overthink them. But like, apparently like supposedly they on TikTok, they like split your attention amongst all the hashtags to see which one sticks. And I was like, I spent all this time looking and I'm like, it's not really a science. And then someone was like, well, if you just don't put any hashtags, it'll just try to randomly guess who might like your stuff. And I was like, oh, interesting. But also like that helps my brain because I get really stressed out trying to figure it all out, which is partially why I don't post everywhere. Cause I'm like, why am I fighting this battle? It used to be like an hour to post an Instagram post because I knew too much. And I was like, let me try to do all of this. And I'm like, oh, I don't even want to post anymore. So like, if you're trying, like that could be an easy way to do it without wasting your time. Cause I wouldn't tell any of my people just be everywhere all the time.
Sure.
With LinkedIn, look at all these graphics you have. One point they said up to 6. And then I kept hearing maybe 3. So I've been using 3 as of late. Is it going to blow your world if you do, 2 or 4? But I like 3 right now. I wish like an SEO person could tell me if this is true, but the first 3 that you use will go into the URL of the post. And I feel like there's got to be some sort of SEO insight from there, but I'm not an SEO person. I'm waiting for someone to tell me.
What is the SEO?
Oh, search engine optimization.
Oh.
So it's like what you Google search for, but it also applies to like what the actual website URL is. So like the first 3 are supposedly the most valued, and it's not a clear science. So what I like to do is a lot of people will like copy the hashtags from Instagram to LinkedIn. And I'm like, don't do that. Like, okay, you have like, is it Shelor? Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Shelor Select. So you have hashtag Shelor Select. Nobody's following your hashtag right now on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Actually, I could be the first one. I just followed you. So you have 1. There is a coach out there that's, her name is Judy Fox, and she'll say, hey, create your own personal hashtag, get people to follow it, and it'll help you. I think that's such a big battle for people, but maybe it's worth it. I don't know. You can Google her.
Like, why would that be a big battle?
Because then it's like, oh, it's like your call to action is follow me on LinkedIn, like, and you're pushing people to that. And I'm like, it might be worth more to get people to like give you their email than it is to get you to follow their hashtag on LinkedIn. But like, it's worked for her. So I don't want to like ding her on that because that's her jam. So you'll see like Judy, like Fox Rocks or something is her hashtag. I don't know. You can Google her. I don't want people getting sucked into the rabbit hole of algorithms, and they're not ready to do that yet. So that's one thing. I also will go into the search bar for LinkedIn in particular. And I just did this morning, and I'll search the hashtag on there. Sometimes they have like, LinkedIn is kind of like, their technology is kind of like not as great as I want it to be, which is the heartbreaker of LinkedIn. I'm like, they're behind. If they could just steal a few Facebook engineers, that would be great. So LinkedIn, if you're listening, get your shiz together. They're behind. But anyway, so you search the hashtag, and then I like to find hashtags that have people using them, right? I don't think there's a perfect science of like how big it needs to be, but there's some that only have 1,000 followers. And I'm like, I don't think that's going to bring you a lot of hope. But if you see like maybe a hashtag has 50 followers, like I compared like hashtag teacher and hashtag teaching. One of them had way more, like teaching had over 100,000 followers. Teacher had like, I don't know, 20,000 or something crazy. Really? So I end up using both, but there's some hashtags that have 0 followers. So like, don't waste your time on them unless you're trying to build a personal hashtag. What do you think? What's your reaction to this? Thoughts, comments?
It's a whole lot of information at once. It's because I've never, went down these rabbit holes really. Just I used to. Yeah, I would just skim whatever and just kind of go look at what other people have done. Like, oh, they just put a few.
That's fine.
That's all I need to do. And and I was like, and I didn't really always felt like if I didn't want to steal anybody else's like captions or stuff. I was like, I got to kind of make.
Don't do that.
And so it's kind of like the Wild West for me. I'm just kind of trying to figure it out on my own here, and just as far as my own personal brand, if that's what you want to say. But a part of it,
good.
Yeah, and part of it still is like, what I'm saying is that I'll just do this little bit and whatever. If it happens, no big deal.
Pick your battles, right? Because I can tell you a million things to get you to where like lots of different places, but pick your battles. If you're just enjoying having fun here, great. But if you're already spending the time and energy, like I see, like you've scheduled some of these posts out, like Marit Khan, you've had her post on here from a month ago. Like if you're putting the time and the energy to make these graphics, there's things you can do to make it a little bit more poppy.
Like the graphics? But
the graphics are actually, I think they're pretty good. There's one big thing I can tell you. Do you want one big thing?
Yeah. Hit me, bro.
Okay. Here's one thing I really like. You tagged a lot of the hosts, right? So when if you tag me after the show, it'll remind me to engage with it, thus showing up to my network, which is how I like to promote some of my hosts that have had me on their show so graciously. The other thing I'll tell you is right now I see like new episode of Shelor Select, and then you put the person's name is up. Listen to it whenever you get a chance to listen to it on podcast or listen to your podcast on YouTube.
Yeah.
It doesn't tell me anything about why this person is interesting to me. I know nothing about this Tim guy. I know nothing. I don't know what he talks about. I don't know if there was anything interesting. If you even take 2 minutes after the show to be like, find out like weird Shaily hobbies, or find out like easy ways to start your social media. Like tease something that's way more valuable than the first line that you've wasted on a new episode of your show. If people like you, they'll listen to your show. But if you don't give them a reason why this show is going to be worth them stopping and going to find it, or like there's going to be a nugget, there's a missed opportunity. Now, granted, is that where you want to spend your time right now? I don't know. It depends on how much you want to get this a little bit bigger, but that makes a huge difference.
I mean, I want it to do, I don't want people to be like, oh, this is shit. But I mean, I don't want to spend, like
they don't know.
8 hours. But I mean, if it's something like just that easy, just one little line.
That's easy.
Yeah, I could, super easy. That would take no time. Like, okay, here.
Exactly. And I think, let me tell you, if I see this on your
these little things, and I just don't know these little hips and tips. I'm making me stop in this right here as you talk.
Yeah. Take notes. Take all the notes. Take all the things. Let me see what I saw, because I was listening to your episodes. You also, I think let me see. Doesn't have to be perfect. What is this? Episode 24.
I don't know.
Maybe you changed this. I'm looking at past episodes here. You also want to do this for your titling too. Now, I'm not a podcast expert. So if there's some podcasting rule where you have to put like episode number as part of your titles and like trust whatever they told you, but like episode number doesn't really mean anything to me. For me, if I'm your audience member, I'm looking to figure out like what's in it for me and what am I going to learn from this. So the more you can give them a taste of like how valuable it's going to be, the easier it is for them to figure out if they want to waste their time on it. And if it's not a waste of time, right? It might be the most amazing episode for somebody, but they don't know.
Okay.
Because you're not boring. You're interesting. You're cool. Like you're such a great conversationalist.
Well, thank you.
So I'm like, I want people to see that. And you already have beautiful graphics. So if you can hook people or give them a nugget of insight before you even say who that person is, because I don't know who Joseph is. I have no idea who he is. I don't know who this Jerry Fu is. That means nothing. But like, if I see, Jerry Fu's, here, Jerry's a conflict resolution coach for Asian American leaders. That is interesting. There's more juice there than just tagging. So good job. So everybody, if you want to listen to any of these other episodes, they're on Shelor Select's podcast, on your podcast player. #promo, #ad for your show.
Wait,
those are big. Bring the juice to the top. That's the tip for anybody on any platform. Bring the juice to the top, whether it's your graphic, a clip from your video, the beginning of your tweet. If it's your headline on LinkedIn, if it's your summary section, which you have a lot more room on your summary section to promote your show or something else that you want to promote, put more in there. It's what we said earlier. You're building the context of who you are to someone who is a stranger, right? Sure. If they want to look you up, they can figure out exactly what you stand for and who your vibe is and what your vibe is and what you stand for. So the more you give them, the easier it is for me. Like, oh, you're cool. You're a cool person. Amazing. Yes. Helpful.
Yes. I'm just, I'm taking this all in and just trying to get my thoughts together, because I've never had anyone really work with me, or never had anyone work with me on any of this. Like I said, it's just been me like looking around, just kind of, that looks cool, I'll do that or whatever. But
that's good.
You should do it. Does a lot of this stuff transfer over to YouTube too?
It probably should. Yeah. I think that the YouTube gurus, I think they say like your thumbnail is everything, which
I've heard that.
If you're like, this is where like, I like to give people like a thought here, right? You could spend all your time doing thumbnails, but if you're a new account, you changing the thumbnail might not move the needle for you if you're just learning how to make videos, right? Like your first few podcasts were probably very different than the last few podcasts that you did. So like, would I tell somebody who's like just figuring it out to spend all their energy on the thumbnails? Because there's people who charge thousands of dollars just for a thumbnail image, right? It's like, that's someone's business. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like someone gets that job for a living.
Sure.
But like you have to strategically pick your battles. Like again, algorithms, like, is that your worry as you're building stuff out? No, maybe it's because you have enjoyment. Like run with that enjoyment, and you can always learn these things later. But if you can bring to the juice to the top, whether it's your title, which I feel like an SEO person would probably agree with, search engine person, because YouTube is SEO, would probably say the more obvious you make what's inside, the better. The first few seconds and minutes, I don't know how much they would tell you. That's important too. Any plot, it's like, we see this on TV, right? Every time you watch a TV show, up next, after the commercial break, they're going to find out why The Bachelor is breaking up with so-and-so. I don't know. They tease you because they want you to stay after the commercial break. So it's the same rule of thumb, right? And every platform has its nitty-gritty, but that's the gist.
Yeah. Like I'm picking up what you're putting down and I'm loving it.
Great.
So, and it was one of these things. I also had the same thing when you just kind of said this, that, I knew like everything I was going to be doing in the beginning was going to be shit. I'd probably look like an idiot but I was like, well, no.
You tried. I'm glad you tried.
No, that was my whole point, was that, and that's kind of my thing, is that, the more I do it, the better I'll get. And like, along the way, I'll learn more or better things. And like, for instance, dude, these little tips that you've been giving me on this episode, I was like, oh, I never thought about that. Oh, she's right. Who's to the top? Like, what have you been doing? So
yes.
It's exactly like these little small things that, they add up to being something big, I guess, in a way. And it's just like, oh, why not do that?
Yes.
Yeah. It's like these little
Yes.
things I could have been doing that take 5 minutes if I just take a minute to write down a better headline or comment or whatever you said, a caption.
Yes.
Yeah. And I was like, why did I think of that? Why did I just do it? And I guess because I didn't know, obviously. And also to my own fault, I never really did the homework either. So.
And it's okay. You don't have to.
Yeah.
If you want to enjoy, if you enjoy what you're doing now, keep going at it. But if you can sprinkle in a little bit of magic, it's easy for you. Great.
Yeah, just a little bit. And just like I just said, like if it's going to take an extra minute, okay, no big deal. I can handle it.
And it's going to make people more open to like scrolling through the episodes, right? Same thing. Like the titles of your episodes. If you tell me what's in it for me, hey, you're going to get mind-blowing social media tips. I don't know how you want to name this. You're creative. You'll find a title, but like that makes it easier for me as a follower. If I'm your biggest fan and I watch all your episodes, like I would be like, oh, that's the one I have to listen to, right? Your guests or your audience is picking and choosing. And if I look through your LinkedIn, I'm like, oh, what other episodes have you done? You know, the more I find like, oh, this topic is what I'm really curious about, the more I'm going to want to listen to that episode and dive into it. Right.
Being in your field and doing this, I mean, is it overwhelming keeping up with everything and the new trends and trying to always figure this out?
You know, I get this question sometimes, and it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, is that a lot of what I teach is like people skills, it's relationships, it's applying what people already know in their hearts about the world to how they do it on the web. It's bridging these two worlds for them. So for me, if I don't know all the nitty gritties of every platform, it's like not the end of the world. Because I have friends that are YouTube experts, right? I have friends who are TikTok experts. A lot of my clients, they don't need that level of deep platform stuff. They need their first and foremost problems is they have a network, they have an audience, they're just not digitally, like their relationship with them is not digitally captured, and they don't tell people what their deal is or how they can help them, and they don't make it easy for someone to figure out what routes they need to take to buy whatever services they have. Those are the things that need to be done first and foremost before they can get any value out of somebody who's really good at amplifying someone on a platform. Because you can get a bajillion followers on one amazing TikTok video, but if you don't actually give them a website where they can learn about your product and then click buy or get on a call or whatever, like that attention is kind of useless. So you have to have that base first before any of those tools, I think, become more worth it to you.
That makes sense.
So I always like to start people that way. All
right. So speaking of that, getting a bajillion followers again, or whatever platform you decide to use, that as far as, okay, so there's like 3 million podcasts or what, I don't even know. There's probably way more than that. I don't even know. So
it's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So should you actually, I guess, what am I trying to say? So what you should do, or what a person should do, is, as far as picking their content, is if they want to be a fit person, a podcaster, a business, is there something you actually gear towards to get more of a following, or is it just kind of luck, or should you just become a twerker and shake your ass? That way, easy, fit, million followers, no big deal.
It's heartbreaking because I see a lot of kids who are like, oh, if I do all the dances, I'll get famous. But like, if you're not doing the dances in a unique way, it doesn't really matter. And like, are you going to get hired as a consultant for your dance skills? Like if you're really good, sure. If you're really funny and you make videos for people, maybe. But like, if you're just whatever, like it doesn't mean anything. But am I hearing also in your question, like about niching of like picking your specifics? Because that's also a big juicy topic.
Yeah, I guess that's because, and that was when I was creating this podcast, I didn't want to be set into one topic. I wanted to be able to talk about anything I wanted to, and not just come to this podcast if you want to talk about CrossFit or whatever, because I wanted to learn stuff like this tonight. So, we have a lot of different, what life experiences than I have, and like just learn about them and stuff. So yeah, that's like, I guess that's kind of what I'm saying. Yeah.
This is a hard one because you'll hear you'll hear so many people like the riches are in the niches, but like I was in that place of like, oh my gosh, I want to do all these things. I want to be a hype girl. I want to be a speaker. I want to be an MC. I want to work events and like all this stuff. And so like I had this like big identity crisis in my life like 7-8 years ago when I was trying to figure out what I do. I'm a teacher too. I've done a lot of things, doing some magic, whatever. Like I've done a lot of stuff. And people are always like, well, what is it that you're known for? But like, all in reality, like, I am very focused on my business. It is very specific. It is yoursocialmediasherpa.com. I can help certain people rock their world with how they do their marketing. You can't help everybody. Like there's somebody for everybody. But I do have a very specific viewpoint in how I do what I do. My client base is probably just as variety filled as all your guests. I've had burlesque dancers, rabbis turned sleep consultants. I've had Indian matchmakers. I've had insurance brokers. I've had photographers. I had quite a few photographers, interior designers, like, I have a couple that's building a greenhouse in the suburbs that is all environmentally friendly, which is so wild.
Nice.
And like, Could that have happened if I was super specific and like I was only helping therapists, that would be really cool, or only helping lawyers, which I'm still waiting to find my first lawyer client. That is like my bingo board. Like that's my last dot I want to press. I want to get one lawyer client. But I do have a framework in which I do what I do. And for me, I show up in a lot of different places. So the person who sees and hears what I say will be like, yes, Shaily, I need to go to it. And it's not for everybody. And that's okay. Mm-hmm. So did I pick my pony in like one area? No, but the framework in which I cover it maybe can appeal to people. And maybe in your situation, it's, the framework in which you do your show. Like I just like to shoot the shit with people and have fun and meet people that are interesting. Maybe that's the lens in which you take it. And there's a specific way in which you do it, but the guests are variety filled. Like you could frame it in a way that's really specific that doesn't limit you in that way. Is that riches in the niches? I don't know, but I think that's a good starting point when you're figuring it out. And I will say the more time I've been doing what I do, the clearer I get at communicating what is so special about what I do. And the longer you do your show, you probably know what your show is better than you did when you first did your first episode before you got to episode 100, right?
I agree 100%.
Does that help?
Yeah, no, it does help. Just because that, along the way, I've been figuring that stuff out. Just like, okay,
exactly.
Yeah. And just, okay. Do I like doing this? Or I'll try it out once. Okay. Nah, that kind of worked. I don't know if that's, yeah. And just learning about my failures and learning what I like. And
exactly.
So I just wonder if that's what, cause I've had, people ask me, what is your podcast about and stuff. I was like, it's just whoever I have on. We just, kind of just go at it with whatever their background is or
okay.
Whatever. Yeah. And just, and they're like, what? It's not set on anything. I was like, no. And then, they're like, it's not a fitness CrossFit podcast. And I was like, well, I know that's what I do, but I don't want to talk about CrossFit for hours all the time. When I do it, this part of my day anyway. So I want to learn other stuff. And I feel like other people do too,
Okay. So maybe let's go deeper here. Is this a podcast where they can learn random nuggets from a variety of cool people? Like maybe that's part of it, right?
That's
part of the message. Then it's also like, is it you selecting really interesting people that have something in common? I don't know. Like that's where you could frame it in a way that doesn't kind of cut you off, but like gives you the framework so people can understand what it is. Is there a constant thing that you love when people share on your show? Like other types of questions that you always like to answer, right? Like how'd you get into what you do? What'd you start? Like, is there things like that? Those are all things that you could frame your show with. And that could happen over time. And it's probably already happened. It sounds like it's happening right now, even.
These, like I said, these little things that's kind of click when I do it. It's like, that makes sense. And then, and I'm very, I'm very self-critical of myself. So I go back. I think,
same though. Let's be honest.
But it also helps me that, don't focus on the negative, focus on what you did right. And like what you did wrong, learn from it. And then that way, you can get better at it again.
Yeah.
Or hopefully do better the next time. Maybe not get better.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, and that makes sense. And that's part of just how my life has been, like, trial and error, like that went to shit. So let me just do something else and make it better the next time. And so, I'll incorporate it here.
Yeah. You liked it 100 times more, you did this 100 times. So it must have been fun.
It's like, like I said, like earlier, it's like, so it's fun to sit down here and do this and have like a cool conversation like this with you.
Yeah.
And like without me doing this, most likely the odds are our paths would have never crossed.
Probably.
And
Probably.
I've never been to Chicago. I'm sure I'm in Virginia, so I don't know if you come to here very often.
I have never been to Virginia. I don't know. I know very little about Virginia, actually, if I'm being honest. So this is great, right?
Yeah. And this is like, and this is, the times and being able to live in, I guess, arguably one of the best times to be alive. We can have food delivered here, like as we talk and or each other and, get drinks and share virtual conversations.
Yes.
It's shared across the world. And
it is.
And you connect with these strangers, like I was saying, that I never thought I would have been able to do.
I want you to hold on to this nugget, right? Like I like that you get a taste of the world through your show. I don't know, like there's something there. Like keep resonating on this, but there's, this is literally your show, right? I like talking to people that I never would have crossed paths with, or that could educate me on something totally obscure, like whatever, like you have something, right? Those are all very specific and they can help someone understand what your show is. Cause that's probably something very consistent, right?
Yeah. I like the same thing. I mean, that thought just came out there right there. And, yeah. And like sometimes when I do these, like, after we finish up, I'm like, fuck, what the hell do we talk about? So that's the reason I try to take notes and like try to.
That's a move.
Yeah. It's like I instantly get done. I'm like, shit. Cause I know when I go back and edit these and stuff, I just kind of like, all right, that sounds pretty good. That was good. All right, here we go. Send it up. Cause like I said, like when I'm very self-critical, if I said something stupid, I'm like, God, you're an idiot, dude. Why are you doing this? Yeah. But then like that also motivates me and pushes me like, all right, you're going to do better. got to change it.
Yeah. Or you just edit more. I don't know. You pick your battles, right? Or you just don't. You're like, I don't know. You'll figure out what you like and what you don't like.
I'm just figuring it out. I'm figuring it out along the way and just keeping it going. And that's one of my one of my philosophies I stole it from my uncle that, just keep
borrowed
it. Yeah. He showed me or told me one time in college that, I know you're going to go out. I know you're going to party. I know you're going to try to live your best life and all that. And I was like, yeah, come on, man. I'm trying to live here, bro. And he was like, but whatever you do, at least just show up to class. No matter how hungover you are, no matter if you're feeling bad, just go. And I've always kind of just taken that with me. And I was like, this is one of the keys to things. Just keep showing up and keep doing the work. And even though some days might be better than others, that if you keep showing up, again, like I think we just said, like a little magic happens. You plant a seed, and hopefully something starts to grow out of that seed. And
yes,
something cool happens. And then we're talking here about social media and success and rebranding and I don't know. I don't
even use that word branding, but some people are like, are you a branding person? I'm like, I don't know. Like I just help people. I amplify their awesomeness online. That's like my new catchphrase. I'm like, expose and amplify your awesomeness online. Let me just pull it out. But like,
is that what people do? They come to you they want to they say rebrand or brand themselves better, or is it social media to be better?
It's not even social media. It's like people think they need social media, but they need something else. That's one thing that happens. The other thing is like, it's less about the branding. It's like, because I don't like it's market. Like there's so many marketers out there who are like, let me do a social media audit. Let me be your social media strategist. And I'm like, fine, like, sure. But like people who have problems are not like, oh, let me go find a social media strategist. Maybe like if you're like in a big company and all that stuff, the people who are like the people that I work with, they don't realize I need a social media strategist. They don't think that way. They think how do I get more business for my people? And they come to me, they're like, oh, how do I do this? How do I push the buttons? How do I make the most out of my time on social media? And, I help them understand it. Cause a lot of times they're like, how does this thing work? And I don't understand like the pieces that go with it. So that's how I think about it. But a lot of times the exposed piece is really big, right? Like you are awesome. You're cool and great, but like you didn't even know that you could like amplify the awesomeness that you're already doing by highlighting the theme of your show or like figuring out what that theme is, right? Exactly. I think if I'm hearing this today. So like a lot of times people don't even know what to validate. They don't know that you should put the juice to the top. There was a podcast I did a while ago and I still see him not doing what I just told you, which is putting the juice to the top. And I'm like, dude, like, I was like, you should do that because like you're wasting. And they have great graphics, great videos. They like put all this time and money into making it look fabulous. Sure. And I'm like, you're missing the opportunity. He has an engaged network already on LinkedIn. Like he's got a bunch of people who actually want to hear what he has to say. Yeah. Like, stop it. Anyway, they do lovely things. I'm a big fan. They know who they are. If you're listening to this, listen to this episode again.
Well, put the juice at the top, dude.
Put the juice at the top. That's it. That should be like a line here. But yeah, it's like people they're not looking for like a generic marketer. And I think a lot of people promote themselves like, oh, I'm a marketer and I do this. And it's like, well, what do you do for me? And it's like, I bridge what you know about life, the real world to like how the internet works. And then that's what amplifies it, right? If you already have, 200 people, 1,000 people that love and adore you, that already advertise your business in the real world because you've been friends with them or you're part of the PTO with them or you're part of a BNI with them or in a Rotary Club, whatever, like, if you don't go to those meetings, they don't see you. But if you show up regularly on a platform where they engage or the email list that you send on, or my dad who does it on WhatsApp, he's a WhatsApp influencer. Like that's what I call it. Like if you don't show up in front of those people on a regular, they forget that you're there. And that's what social media is really great for. It helps you stay in touch when staying in touch is valuable towards your business. So those are the people who have the most likely ability to like win on the internet.
This question popped in my head while you were just talking.
Please.
So, all right. So let's say I was a famous or an up and coming artist of, I don't know, I'm a music guy, I don't know, playing something. So with maybe just your help or whatever in this social media and doing podcasts and and just marketing myself, I guess, or promoting myself, what I actually need to go promote or hire one of these big time promoters or it's like kind of, these big marketers now who take like X percentage of what you make.
Oh,
where I could feel like I could do most of this by myself and just having somebody like you on my side. Does that kind of make sense what I'm trying to say?
Like, do you hire the big marketing firm? They'll take a percentage and let them do it. Well, that's a good deal for you if you've got no money. But I've never heard of that model. I don't know that model very well.
I just wondered if I could just do it on my own and just like, hey,
you could.
And just have as much success.
Good question. Look, I think everybody has the potential. Like, I think that's like what I love about a cell phone. Like you have the power in your hand. It used to be a television network that stopped you from getting on their shows or getting a show on your network. You have the power.
Yeah.
So I do feel like everyone has that, but like I also want to acknowledge that like somebody who has a great YouTube channel, they're great because they probably have a team behind them. They probably have other folks who do stuff, but they probably started by themselves and then added that later. Because if you don't love the thing, if you don't care about the thing, you can throw money on it, but people might not want to watch it anyway. Like there's, I don't know, I heard somebody say, oh, like there's this bajillionaire guy that wants to be like a famous social media person. He spent millions of dollars to get him marketing to make him a star, and like nobody cares. So maybe this person's not interesting or whatever. So like you could throw money on it. I mean, it's hard. I would say for a lot of people, paying someone to do your social media when you don't really know what you're saying or who you're saying it to isn't always fruitful. It's hard. Look, marketing firms can be like, I have a blog on my website that like breaks down pricing in my industry of like, if you hire a freelancer, here's what it could cost. If you hire an agency, here's what it could cost. And also like, there's different use cases of who can benefit from each of these kinds of options, right? Yeah. You don't have a marketing person in house, but you want someone who knows all the, what's current, all the insights on every single platform. An agency might be your go-to bet because they'll do all the work for you and keep the deadlines. But it might be more costly than getting a freelancer, but your freelancer might quit halfway through and you might not know what they did. And then you might not know how to get it back to where it was. So like, there's all these pros and cons of what you need. I think a lot of people don't understand what they want. And that's why I like to figure that out with them as part of my service is like, okay, let's understand where you are, what advantages you have. Let's pull out your story, right? Everyone's got a story and let's use that to like help people see what the situation is. So is it marketing? Like, could you be a musician and do it all on your own? You could. I mean, we've seen it on TikTok, but like, there's a huge advantage when you do have support like that. That's why I don't like my service. A lot of times I like actively, I'm like, if you're starting from zero, it's going to be a lot harder for me to get you what you need than it is if you already have people. And that's why I'm like, I always am very careful. Like, I have a couple clients like that. And I'm like, here's what you have. Here's what you're going to need to do. If you want to get attention, you probably need press. So one of them hired a PR person. I'm like, bless you, good move, right? One of them happens to be really good at press. So I know the minute he has all of this capturability prepared, he can amplify his thing because now people know what his thing is and they can look up their website and he can see what they're doing, all this stuff. So did he need a firm to do all that stuff? No, he did it on his own as a base. But if you don't have the base, it's like, I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts on this, but like, depends on where you are. If you really, I don't know. It's very delicate. Yeah. It's delicate. It's a skill.
We're kind of running short on time here, but
okay.
Yeah, you're good. But that's what I was wondering, that could it be done? But I think I agree with you that it can be, but like you said, it's delicate. It might be a rough road.
Yeah.
I think, but if you don't mind, I don't know what exactly. Yeah. Cause I think,
okay, here's what it is. Here's what it is that this is what I tell people. The one guarantee, if you want to succeed on social media, the one guarantee that you have, there is one. Mm-hmm. It takes a lot more legwork. If you build relationships with the people you serve. So if somebody says, hey, Chris, I just listened to your one episode. Oh my gosh, you're wonderful. You're my new friend. Maybe you check in with them every few months and be like, hey, are you still listening to my show? Oh, I'm going to go listen to another one. If you have that level of relationship with people too, that's why I say when you already have a network outside of the internet, like you have that, you already have this advantage potentially. When you can build those relationships with people, that's where you can really succeed. And that's where, if you have enough trust, even when we talked about this earlier, when you do screw up, they're more willing to be flexible. They're more willing to be like, hey, Chris, here's a tip for your podcast, or you should talk to this really cool famous person that you would never have access to because you're friends with them or whatever. Like that's where that magic happens. And it takes time and energy and a lot of trust, but it matters, right? Can I tell you this story? A client just told me this today. He said he did a survey for his so he's trying to build a social media platform on his own, which is so wild. He put out a survey to get research and all that stuff. And then one random guy has been following him on social media says, hey, can you listen to my podcast and give me feedback? Because this guy is knowledgeable on this topic. My client spent all this time giving feedback. And then afterwards, he's like, oh, I wonder if I should ask this guy for feedback on my new social media platform in this video I made. He sends him the video and this guy did nothing. Okay. And not that it has to be reciprocal, but like this guy basically wouldn't do nice things. Like it was like he expected something from my client, and probably maybe he could have easily spammed 10 people the same question and my client took the time to answer, but like he didn't appreciate the client's time and energy for spending the time on that show. Or it's like when a podcast host flakes on me and they don't even say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. They just say, oops, I had a client meeting run over. Like that's rude, right?
I've been there. Yep.
I don't love that.
Yep.
What?
Oh, I was just saying, like, I've had people do it to me and it was like, what the fuck? Like, at least send me something.
at least send you something or apologize, because then it makes that person look bad. And if that's the energy you're bringing into the world, then yeah, you could probably go on and get on 100 podcasts. Like I could, like, Shaily gets on 100 podcasts tomorrow, but I would half-ass it. Like if I didn't listen, I always listen to my, hosts. I listen to their shows to really get a sense of who they are.
Good.
Like, but like a lot of people will just be like, let's go through the numbers. But then it's like, oh, you're just a person that's spammy and annoying. And like, right. So like, it's like, these are like life skills. These are social skills that I know you and I had to earn. Right.
Yeah.
So you don't want to take advantage of people like that. So when you have that good energy and that heart of a real person in it, that to me is the only way to guarantee it. If you start with just 10 people, fine. You don't need a million of those. Those are the people who are really going to care. You keep building that up because maybe they'll tell their friends about it. Right. So that's how you win.
Love it. Take it home on that right there, Shaily.
Yes.
If people want to find you and all that good stuff, feel free to plug away.
Oh my gosh. I am all over the internet, especially places you've never heard of before. Like don't look too hard. You'll find
whatever you want to do.
My TikToks from 2016 that are on my TikTok account, because TikTok was around in 2016 under a different name. So I live for LinkedIn. So if you want a very low barrier, follow me on LinkedIn. I always put out really cool, fun, easy social media tips all the time. My favorite thing is if you get on my email list, and you do that by signing up for my collection of my favorite LinkedIn profiles that will help you engage your people, help make it really, really clear what you do and how much you'll care about them if they're your ideal client. I also have, like I mentioned here, like I have a hashtag video for like Instagram hashtags that I made that you can buy, and it's on my website. If you really love what we're doing here, I do work with people like this where we do like a much more deeper version of what we did here, where I kind of can pull out ideas from your brain and like show you what magic you are missing on application on. So I do that in a more extended thing. But the way people always work with me is I do like a video review where I hate the word stalk, but I kind of stalk you on the internet, tell you what works and what doesn't. So the tip I gave you earlier about putting the juice to the top, I can literally show you in a video, like, here's this post, here's where you can make it better. Here's what was good. And here's what would make it shine. So that's usually the first way that people start with me. It's a very low barrier to entry way to get my feedback on everything and anything you have on the internet. So that's my thing. You can find me at yoursocialmediasherpa.com. Woohoo. And you'll see all the details there. And you'll see me on Chris's show, which is fabulous.
Shaily, thank you for doing this, man. This was awesome. You're badass.
You too. And I want to see. Now I'm going to follow you. Actually, I'm going to make sure I follow you.
I'm going to make sure I got the juice at the top. Is my one takeaway right now. So
juice at the top. Everything and anything. Just run through it. And maybe you only have to do it once, right? You already have your notes, right?
Exactly.
It's probably the same thing you write on your podcast descriptions. You could probably reapply to your LinkedIn descriptions, to your Instagram. It's going to be great. I'll tell you this. Here's my social media closing quote that I wish I had written, but I did not. It's not original, but it feels like it came from my soul. Social media is about the people, not about your business. Provide for the people, and the people will provide for you.
Ooh, love it.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks again. Love it.
Thanks for having me. It's been a lovely evening.
This is fun. We'll do it again. I'm just getting more tips from you. So.
Let's do it. And I survived the thunderstorm, so yay to that.
It's all good. All good vibes here. So, all right, people, we're out of here. Be good to yourselves.
Bye.